Today I realized that integrated serialism is just like systemic video games. What do I mean by that, right? So both use systems and procedural generations as part of creating the experience. Both can harness chance and indeterminacy in different amounts for very different reasons. And both of them actually ask questions about the importance of you, specifically as the audience. So what is integrated serialism? First off, it sounds kind of like this. If you're like me and many others, this is really challenging music. It's not very easy for me to enjoy.
Atonal nightmare of pretension.
Honestly, that's part of why I find it so fascinating. A lot of composers in the 20th century were writing in this style. Why? Like, what did they get out of that? Like, sincerely, I want to know. Before we talk about why, let's just talk a little bit about how. Serialist music often uses something that we like to call tone rows. This is a technique where you have a predetermined order of pitches, and you go through all 12 of those pitches before you repeat the order. This tends to undermine any sense of pitch hierarchy. One result of the tone row as a technique is that all 12 pitches are used basically equally, and that makes it really hard to hear any one pitch as more important or central. It's actually part of why it's still so challenging for us many years later. It's because we're still very used to having a pitch center. So integrated serialism takes that idea and expands on it. A cycle might have been responsible earlier for just pitch, but now a cycle is also responsible for how long the note is, the style of the note, how loud it is. When you listen to a work of integrated serialism, there are systems playing out cycles and orders, but the music itself feels really unpredictable. The meticulous ordering of this music is imperceptible even for trained musicians. And here's the thing, systems feeling unpredictable also feels like a really good description of, well, systemic games. So systemic games are about or feature prominently the unscripted ways in which mechanics and systems will interact with each other. The weather system in a game, for example, might interact with metal objects in the game in a way that is unexpected or at the very least unscripted. For me, serialist music and systemic games are both using complicated systems and rules to create an experience that feels organic. It's unpredictable. You don't know exactly what will happen next, and it will happen because of forces that exist outside of you. That feels natural, that feels organic. And for me, that feels like both Boulez and Minecraft. This sense of unpredictability, ironically, can be achieved through really different means. Take the music of Pierre Boulez. His musical details can be meticulously predetermined through just serialist techniques, but his music can sound almost identical at times to the music of John Cage. And John Cage is outright using chance and indeterminacy. To me, this just gets back to how unexpected the interactions between different rules can be. The unexpected consequences of interactions between complicated rule sets and systems can feel just as unpredictable as something truly random. What fascinates me most about this idea is the way that both of these things actually take a look at the idea of how central the audience is. One of the big draws about systemic games is that they feel alive. The game world feels like it exists separate from the player. Like, I've always found Minecraft deeply immersive, partially because it just goes on forever. I could never explore all of it. The game world exists, and I'm a visitor there. Sometimes that feeling can be really exciting, but other times it can be unsettling. Like in the walking sim The Beginner's Guide. The game's stories and themes seem to say, this game wasn't meant for you. You weren't meant to understand it.
That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
Honestly, not understanding the world around me or my role in it is a pretty relatable experience. And that brings me back to this fascination with this music in the first place. Why serialism? Karl Schorsky describes Schoenberg's music as confronting his listener with an art whose surface was broken, charged with the full life of feeling of man, adrift and vulnerable in an ungovernable universe. Adrift and vulnerable in an ungovernable universe. As a 20-something trying to navigate how to even survive within all of the systems acting on my own life, I find that feeling deeply relatable. And that's what I end up finding in serialism. To me, it's about exploring a world that you aren't meant to understand. A sound world where you aren't the player character.